Have you ever held something so powerful in your hands that you knew it could shatter someone's carefully crafted reality? Something that, with a single action, could expose a lifetime of lies and deceit. For me, it wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a legal document. It was a humble, unassuming binder. A binder that looked exactly like the hymn books my former mother-in-law's church used every Sunday. But inside, it wasn't songs of praise. It was a meticulously crafted collection of truth pictures, text messages, emails, a history of betrayal so deep, it would bring an entire congregation to its knees. This is the story of how my mother-in-law tried to steal my daughters and left my late husband's orphaned children with nothing. She used her church as her weapon, a platform for lies, and a shield for her family's darkest secrets. But she underestimated one thing: the power of a woman who has nothing left to lose. And the sweet, righteous fury of a mother fighting for her children. If you've ever felt the righteous anger of being wronged and dreamed of serving justice to those who deserve it, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and get ready for a revenge story that proves the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with a binder, a truth bomb, and a whole lot of dramatic flair. My life, as I knew it, shattered a little over a year ago. A phone call in the middle of the night, a horrific car accident, and just like that, my ex-husband was gone. The man I had been married to for 20 years, the father of my 2 daughters, was a ghost. Our marriage had already been over for months. We were in the process of a divorce. But the reason for the split wasn't a slow drift apart. It was a sharp, painful, and very public betrayal. A betrayal my daughters discovered, a betrayal that tore our family apart, and a betrayal that would eventually lead to a whole new level of heartache. You see, my ex wasn't just cheating. He had a whole other life. 2 young sons with his affair partner, a woman who had also died in a tragic accident. The kids were left orphaned, and in the aftermath of all this trauma, my ex-in-laws, the very people who had looked me and my daughters in the eye for years, showed their true colors. They immediately launched a 2-pronged assault. First, they tried to get custody of my daughters, my beautiful, traumatized girls. My kids, who had been through enough, were now facing the prospect of being taken from their home and forced to live with the very people who had enabled their father's cheating. Their second, and equally baffling, demand was that they move in with us. My home. The place where my girls and I were finally starting to find some peace. Needless to say, that was a hard no. They'd already inherited a significant amount of money from my ex's bank account and life insurance. Money my ex had told me was for our daughters. But instead, they saw it as their personal piggy bank, and they were more than happy to use it while pretending to be penniless victims. My daughters, 17 and 15, had a right to be angry. They were the ones who found out about the affair and the 2 baby boys. They were the ones who had to confront their father. They were the ones who had to deal with the aftermath. They were the ones living with the daily weight of their father's deceit. We were a family in mourning, but also a family in recovery. We were making progress. We had a therapist who was helping us navigate the trauma. Life was slowly, painfully, starting to feel normal again. Until one Saturday morning. It was my youngest daughter's birthday, and we decided to do something special. We headed to our local weekend market, a vibrant, bustling place with farm-fresh produce, artisanal cheeses, and the kind of sugary treats my teenager craved. I gave her a budget and told her to go wild. A small slice of freedom and joy she deserved. An hour passed. I wasn't worried at first. But a creeping unease started to settle in my gut. I was just about to pull out my phone to call her when my own phone buzzed. It was her. And she was crying. "Mom," she choked out between sobs, "some people are cornering me. They're saying things." A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. I looked at my oldest daughter, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Something's wrong," I told her. "We need to go." We ran. We pushed through the crowd, our hearts pounding, following the sound of my daughter's voice. And there they were. 6 older women, dressed in what I can only describe as their Sunday best, huddled around my daughter. They weren't just talking to her, they were berating her. My youngest, who should have been celebrating, looked small and terrified, clutching a bag of chocolates like a shield. I heard snippets of their tirade. "UN Christian to abandon your grandparents. Disgrace to your father's memory. Be a good big sister to your poor, orphaned baby brothers. My blood went cold. My ex-in-law's church. I recognized some of these women. They were the gossip mill, the self-righteous choir. And they were using my daughter's birthday as a pulpit for their judgment. I pushed my way through the group, planting myself firmly between them and my terrified child. Go, I told my oldest. Take your sister, get her things, and go to the car. Now. My oldest, bless her heart, didn't hesitate. She grabbed her sister's hand and they were gone. Then, I turned to the women. The anger that had been simmering inside me for months finally boiled over. I looked at them, their faces a mask of righteous indignation, and I just let it rip. The words tumbled out, the frustration, the fear, the disgust. The screaming escalated, and soon, all of us were asked to leave. We were a public spectacle. As I walked away, the women trailed behind me like a pack of vultures, their sanctimonious squawking echoing through the market. I shoved my girls into the car, locked the doors, and drove away, leaving a trail of angry words and bitter tears behind us. That night, after my daughters were safely in bed, I needed answers. I couldn't understand why these women were so hateful. So I did what any modern woman would do. I logged onto social media. I had a friend at my ex-in-law's church, a kind man who had always been a quiet supporter. I messaged him, and he told me everything. My mother-in-law, the queen of manipulation, had posted a sob story worthy of a Lifetime movie on the church's Facebook group. She claimed that my daughters and I were heartless, that we were leaving her and her husband homeless and penniless, and that my daughters refused to speak to them. But the most horrifying lie of all was her explanation. But my mother-in-law had made a critical mistake. Her church was incredibly strict about one thing: cheating. Adultery, whether by a husband or a wife, was a cardinal sin. And in her rush to paint me as a villain, she had given me the perfect weapon. I had been mid-divorce when my ex died. This meant I had access to all the evidence I had collected during the process. I had everything I needed to expose my ex-husband and, in the process, bring my mother-in-law's house of cards crashing down. The next morning, I woke up with a cold, clear resolve. My daughters had been through enough. This was for them. This was my moment to fight back. I went to a print shop and paid extra to have every piece of evidence printed in beautiful, high-quality color. The betrayal would be impossible to deny. The evidence included asterisk pictures of my ex and his affair partner, kissing in my living room. Asterisk text messages between them, filled with their sordid love story. Asterisk texts and emails from my ex to his parents, confessing his affair, with their supportive, enabling replies. Asterisk emails from my ex-in-laws harassing me about the divorce. Asterisk and the ultimate coup de grace, emails and texts from my ex-in-laws to my daughters. Messages where they called my girls bastards and blamed them for their father's death because they told me about the affair, triggering the divorce. A text message sent just 2 days after my ex died, a text that would break any child's heart. I spent hours at home, crafting my revenge. I bought simple binders, the kind you would see in an office supply store, and meticulously arranged the documents inside. I designed the covers to look exactly like the prayer and song packets the church gave out every Sunday. The first picture inside was a high-quality print of my ex and his mistress, locked in an embrace in my home. Their faces were clear, their joy palpable. Underneath, I wrote, ex-husband's name, and, affair girl's name, love story. The irony was beautiful. The artistry of it all, magnificent. I made a dozen of them, enough to ensure they would spread. Then, I went to the church. It was a Sunday morning, just before the service began. There's a desk at the back of the church where they keep extra hymn books and programs. No one ever checks them. I walked in, placed my binders among the church literature, and walked out. I went home and waited. My hands were shaking, a mixture of fear and adrenaline coursing through my veins. The gossip mill, as my friend later told me, was quick and harsh. The names my ex and his affair partner were called on the Facebook group were so bad the pastor had to get involved. People were angry at my ex-in-laws for their abuse towards my daughters. They still judged me for the divorce, but the consensus was that my actions were understandable, and that I might one day return to the light. But my ex, my mother-in-law's great son, he was a sinner, a cheater, a disgrace. And his mistress, a Jezebel. The irony was not lost on me. I received 2 apology letters in the mail from church members, and an invitation to join the church for support. As for my ex-in-laws, they were shamed into leaving the church. They lost their community, their support system, their entire social circle. My ex-mother-in-law made a post on her Facebook wall about how alienated she felt, how no one cares for the elderly anymore, and how she wished her great son was still alive to take care of her and her husband. But the biggest laugh of all came from that post. My great son taking care of her? What money was she talking about? I was the breadwinner in my marriage. I had a successful career. My ex had a dead-end job and a gambling addiction. He had nothing. But she had inherited his life insurance. She was using it to play the victim, to cry poverty, to manipulate. She was a master of the game. But now, she had been outplayed by a quiet, exhausted, but fiercely protective mother who had finally had enough. Justice is a funny thing. Sometimes it's served in a courtroom. Sometimes it's served with a simple binder and a whole lot of truth. The revenge wasn't about being cruel, it was about protecting my daughters and exposing the hypocrisy that had been used as a weapon against us. It was about showing that the truth, when presented with clarity and conviction, will always win in the end. If this story gave you chills, if it made you feel that tingle of satisfaction that only a perfectly executed revenge story can, smash that like button and tell us in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed or carried out? And of course, subscribe for more stories like this. Stories of justice, karma, and the sweet, sweet sound of a hypocrite's world coming undone.